Welcome, my friends, to the Elite 3 of Heroes, or as he is known, FARAKEL raid guide from the Mr. Rank 1 himself, as you can see on the screen. And yeah, I'm gonna be covering the whole raid fight in depth. So first of all, I will also add those video chapters as well as timestamps in the comment, but basically first I'm gonna be talking about the raid overall, what you need to know. Later I'll cover each of the 5 phases of the raid with details on like their attacks, what to do, what not to do, how to destroy those towers, how to counter the boss, and all the other jazz. And in the last part I will also leave an unedited run that we've done. It's not like a amazing leaderboard breaking run, but just a regular run with some fails, some good things done, just for you to understand how the raid works if you're interested in that. Okay, so let's get started with the raid itself and some information that you need to know about it. So the boss actually has 5 phases. You're not able to skip phases like you can in Naraka or White Shadow Castle by just killing the boss faster. No, once you reach the end of a certain phase, the boss will pretty much stop receiving damage, so you're not able to skip through them. And there are 5 phases, so there will be first of all 3 elemental phases. The phases will be random. One run you might start with the fire, go into water and wind, while the other run you might start with wind, go into fire and then water, and yeah, basically they're randomized, so you're not able to predict which phase you are gonna get first. After that, the 4th phase will be the minion phase. This is where you will need to do 3 platforms, and each of them contains certain monsters. So the monsters can be seen here. One platform will contain the fire ifrit, second one will contain the fire sylph, and the third one will be water undying with, I believe, 2 of these elementals. And then the last phase will be the main boss himself, so he will be neutral element by then and will receive various buffs from all 3 elementals previously fought in the raid. And now for team setups, there are a few important debuffs that you have to keep in mind. First of all, one of the phases as well as the main boss will have a lot of critical resistance, so there are a few options to go about it. You can go with your regular teams, however, when the boss have 80% critical resistance, your crit damage will not be doing a lot of damage, so you either need a debuff that removes critical resistance, and there are only a few really accessible units for it, so I'm afraid the choice boils down to quite literally a single unit, which is the Fire Vampire. Dark Chimera, if you have him, sure, but the main use will be the Fire Vampire, and his first charge skill actually has a critical resistance down right here. Because the boss has 80%, you're not able to bring it all the way down, but it will help you do more damage even with a level 1 applied. Now the second thing you need for this boss is a provoke. Every time the boss is provoked, he loses a little bit of his ultimate cooldown. And if you are a cleave or you have a cleave in your team, you will not have trouble gathering that provoke. But if you do not have any cleaves in your team, you may have to look into the units that do provoke. There are quite a bit, so I didn't look into the best units for it. I'll leave that up to you and exactly what units you have, as of course that depends on your monster box, and I don't want to do some predictions to not throw you off the way. Okay, so to talk about the different phases, I will be jumping into a pre-recorded video I did yesterday. So we did a lot of raid runs. I've done like 15 runs by now, and we got a solid team fleshed out. We did like 10 runs without any fails. There is some room for improvement for the teams, but it will give you a basic idea on how to do certain phases, how to dodge certain attacks and all that jazz. So first of all, I'm gonna be looking over the fire phase. Actually, you know what? We'll look at the phases in the order they are done here. So I think the first one was water. So the boss will give you a few seconds to attack him before transforming into a phase, and as you can see, he turned into the water FARAKEL for the first phase. And the water FARAKEL will have several different abilities, and we'll cover them all in just a second. So first of all, what you need to know about the water phase is he has a passive. So all FARAKELs have a passive of decreasing the damage they take by 30%, so do not be scared if your units are doing less damage than in other raids. And this unit also has a passive where he receives 100% drain, meaning that all damage that he does will also be taken as life's stolen health. So if you want to deal with it more efficiently, you can utilize a heal block for this phase, but usually you will be able to do more than enough damage to drop him to that 80% mark without any heal block. And now as the fight goes on, I'll be covering each attack in more detail. So how to counter them, how they look like, stuff like that. So the first attack will be these sort of 3 circles. The boss will show 3 circles around. There will be 3 ranges. It will be right next to the boss, it will be in the more outer ring, and it will be in the most outest ring. He will show 3 patterns, and then he'll dash and attack in those patterns slowly, like every second or two. And you have to memorize the pattern and dodge it that way. If you do not dodge, you will receive pretty good damage, like 40% of your max HP or something like that. And you will receive a level 2 frostbite on all of the enemies that were hit. So you can see the attack right here. It shows first circle close to the boss, second on the outer ring, third one on the very outest ring. And these will not always happen like this. These will happen randomly. You may see something like close, middle, close, or maybe furthest, closest, furthest, and not even hit a certain outer ring. So you just have to dodge according to the phase it occurs in. Now the second phase, these of course will not go in the same order as well. They will be randomized. So one of the phases is the sort of frostbite phase. I don't know how you even call it. But basically, one of your summoners or 2 of your summoners will receive the sort of a buff. You will notice that it occurs below your feet. So this time only this player received the buff. This means that after around 5 to 7 seconds, a sort of small water pool will appear below that player wherever he was standing. Very similar to how the Twisted Marshes blood pools work. So it's like the same range, the same mechanics, and wherever that water pool is located, everyone in that water pool will receive a lot of damage. I would say it's like good 40 to 50% of your max HP every second, so definitely do not place it close to a lot of players. And what that pull does, it does deal damage to the fire tower. So the player who receives this pull should instantly go stand next to the tower, and once they're standing next to the tower, that water pull will also be dealing damage to the tower slowly. As you can see, let's ignore the other attacks for now. Yeah, so for this one, unfortunately, we went away too fast and we didn't quite hit the pull on the fire tower, but let's skip a bit further. As you can see, one of the pulls was successfully placed and it is slowly dealing damage to that fire tower. So this is the way you kill the boss. You basically wait for those water pulls to occur. There you can see we had 2, and the boss's tower is slowly getting its HP chipped from those pulls. But also you have to not stand in them because you will also receive a lot of damage. So as soon as the pull disappears below your feet, instantly move away, as the pull will appear there after like a second or 2 after disappearing from your feet. Okay, another ability is called Absorb. This will be the sort of red shield that the boss pops on himself. It should happen in a second. There we go. It has like a 3 or 4 second charge timer. As you can see in this one, we didn't know how it worked yet, so we did it wrong. when that bubble appears, you actually have to stop hitting the boss, because if you hit the boss a certain amount of times, the bubble will pop and do a lot of damage and knockback to you. So basically, whenever you see that bubble, instantly back away, stop hitting the boss. If you do not meet the certain amount of hits, he will actually not attack you at all, and all of you will be safe. And the damage he does is 70% of your XP. That damage is fixed, so no damage reduction effects will affect it. It will always be 70% of whatever max HP that you have. And yeah, I saw that there is the same phase happening in this run, so this time the bubble actually didn't pop because we didn't do enough hits. So as you can see, everyone stopped hitting. I still didn't know the mechanics, but yeah, the bubble didn't pop and the boss simply does not do any damage. So make sure that when that bubble comes up, you stop hitting, you move away, and you let the boss use his abilities. Now, about phases. So, as you remember, I said that you cannot skip phases in any way. As you can see, once you get the boss down to 80% HP, any damage that you deal will do pretty much like 1 damage, I believe. Yeah, as you can see, damage is either evasion or 1, so don't even try to hit it. If you see that the boss is at 80% HP, just move away, wait for the tower to get killed, and wait for the next phase. And once the phase is complete, the boss transforms and he will enter a different phase. Now, unfortunately, that raid did not showcase all of the abilities, so I'm gonna use another video from the very first run actually that we did. So right here, similar to the red bubble, you will see a new blue bubble actually appear. So the boss should use the attack. There we go. This one is called Recharge. And for this one, it's the opposite of the red bubble, and you have to do a certain amount of hits on the boss in order for it to not detonate. So you can see the timer right here. If you do enough hits, the boss will enter what's called a groggy state and simply not attack you for a few seconds. If you fail to destroy that bubble, you will receive the damage just like you would from the red bubble. So 70% max HP, knockback for 3 seconds, and all that jazz. And one last attack from the boss, and I will only cover it once because it's the same attack for every single phase as well as the final boss. The only difference are a few debuffs based on their passive. But the boss will enter the sort of dashing phase. As you can see, it starts in just a second. It goes through, and each hit, he does like 4 hits, and each hit will strip a debuff. The water doesn't strip. The water doesn't. This one will apply damage taken up. So for each hit, it does quite a lot of damage, and it applies a damage taken up to you. Now let's get started with the fire phase. So for this one, the boss again has several passives that affect the gameplay. So as with any boss in this raid, he has a 30% damage reduction. On top of that, he actually also has one of the biggest buffs probably in this dungeon. He has 80% critical resistance. This means that critical damage will be very ineffective, and you either have to do more damage overall or look for other options like non-critical hits. You may try out something like weak point attacks or more attack focused guild for this phase. But if you do not have any of that, just stick with your regular team. The fire phase you will be able to deal with just fine even with your regular builds. If you have the option to use a fire vampire Verdi in this phase, it will be useful as well because his first charge skill will apply critical resistance down, meaning that critical resistance will jump down from 80% to 50% with a level 1 debuff. Allowing you to do way more damage than you would otherwise. But yeah, the fire boss has 4 main phases, so we'll look over all of them. The first phase you can see right here, he will charge up dashes at a certain player, and those dashes will happen 2 or 3 times. The amount of times is kind of random. And as you can see, he will do a dash and he will leave a fire trail behind. Do not step in that fire trail. As you can see, that player on the far left was targeted this time, and he left 3 of these fire pulls. So what this does, it does pretty decent damage, it does defense break, it does burn, and it gives the boss level 2 movement speed up. So as you can see, he used 3 dashes and he received up to level 6 movement speed. So just dodge those fire attacks and it will not be an issue at all. Now the second attack is happening right after this one, and this will be the I'm sorry for not mentioning like the exact names. I didn't write them down, I'm just explaining on how they look like. I think you will understand with both the explanation as well as the visuals. So the next one will be this sort of a half circle attack. As you can see, it charges right here and it shoots the sort of a burn. This one is not too scary. It does a bit of damage and burn. The damage does scales with the amount of enemies hit, so if it hits like one player, definitely nothing to worry about. But if you see that your whole party is getting hit, definitely a few of you should move out of the way, as then the damage you receive will be quite significant. So just, you can get hit, just make sure not every one of you get hit by that attack. Then, just like with the previous phase, you will have the boss doing that weird dashing ability. So it should happen in just a second. As you can see, the boss will start going through your units and applying damage taken up as well. No strips, no anything like that for this rotation either, so as long as you have buffs and enough HP, you should be able to survive it just fine. Now, whenever the boss starts using one of the abilities that can destroy the towers, one of the players will receive the sort of a target on their summoner. The target lasts like what, 5 to 7 seconds or so, and the person who has that target, in this case it was me, you need to move in the direction that the boss, whenever he shoots the ability at you, would hit the tower. That way the tower will receive 50% of its HP down, and 2 of these attacks will finally kill the wind tower. However, make sure to not get hit by this ability, as it does a lot of damage. So first of all, it does 85% of your max HP as fixed damage, meaning no defense buffs, no shields will help you there. You will be dropped down to 15%. You will also lose all of your beneficial effects, and you will get level 3 burn applied to you. So even if you're not able to shield up or healed up right after being hit by that attack, you will most likely die. And yeah, as for the fire phase, these are all of the attacks. Then he will continue doing all of his regular attacks until you have both dropped the boss to 60% as well as dropped the tower of wind to 0. So just letting a few more seconds play out. You will see the full run at the end, so I will not play up until the end. But once it's destroyed, it will be switching to its last elemental phase. So once the boss gets down to 60%, he will switch to his last phase. For me, this was the wind phase. For you, it might be different. The wind phase, I would say the mechanics behind the wind phase are probably one of the easiest. However, the boss itself, I would say, is the most difficult when in the wind phase, because all of the attacks are very deadly, so it's just hard to dodge. Some of the attacks do strip, so it's very annoying. So personally, I don't like the wind phase most. You may have your preferences based on the team you have, because for me also the Nadin Hard does not work. My water cleave is unable to weaken the boss's attack, so just everything increases the damage a lot. But yeah, the wind phase has a passive as well, and 4 main attacks. So the passive is probably one of the scariest ones. First of all, just like with all ones, it decreases the damage he takes by 30%. After that, each of his attacks that he does will also strip 1 beneficial effect, and each attack that he does will also apply electric shock to everyone that was hit. So as you can see, every attack does a strip, every attack applies electric shock. Electric shock is by far the strongest damage over time effect, and it has higher damage than all other damage over time effects. So be wary of that, especially if you're hit by those hard hitting abilities. And now let's jump into the attacks of the wind phase. Okay, first of all, this will be the, what's it called, sort of a mini tornado phase or whatever you want to call it. There will be a lot of these circles, like 15 to 20 circles around the boss. They are really easy to dodge, and in some cases you are even able to continue hitting the boss from spots where there aren't any circles. What these circles will do is they will knock you up and they will apply electric shock. The damage they do is really not that big, so it's not a big issue if you do get hit by them. Now, the second ability is, of course, right after those little circles. The dash the boss does. This one is by far the scariest dash. If you check my team, you can see they were all shielded up, attack buffed up. And in the end, I lost quite a few buffs. So like my Tessarion, my Bastet lost their attack buffs. Again, damage over time is getting, not damage over time, damage taken up is getting applied. Buffs are getting stripped and electric shock is getting applied for each of those dashes, of those hits. So be careful of this. In most cases, the cleave will get targeted. So in my case, unfortunately, I'm like the meat shield for this raid as I'm the only cleave in here. But yeah, that one will be scary. So for the wind boss, I always recommend having some mana saved up for abilities that can allow you to shield up, cleanse those debuffs, give other buffs that protect you against it, because you can receive those scary buffs, and if a follow-up attack comes right after that, there's a good chance some of your units may die. Now, the next attack will be the big tornadoes. So the boss will spawn two sort of dark gray tornadoes right next to him, and they will follow a random player. Both of the tornadoes may follow the same player. The tornadoes may follow, one tornado will follow one and another tornado will follow the other. That's completely random. As you can see, it keeps following you, and if you get into that tornado, it does a lot of damage, so make sure to dodge it. I would say like 3 hits and you're pretty much toasted, so be careful there. As you can see, I think if you look at the Anvil or what's it called, the Saturn HP, they got hit by one of those and it did like what, 24% of their HP. It went through shield, so yeah, definitely be careful of that attack as it does quite a lot and quite quickly. And while dodging that, you also see these sort of lightnings come up right after. So let's wait for those. Yeah, unleashes divine punishment. So this will be the sort of electric lightnings, zaps, whatever you now call it. What you need to know about this is they do very big damage and they stun you for half a second. So you must dodge these. And a few tips about this. So first of all, this attack is the attack that destroys the water tower. So as you can see, there is a water tower right here. One of the players, I would not recommend for 2 or more players to do this. One of the players should be dedicated to hitting the tower. It doesn't have to be a specific player, it can just be whoever was closest when the attack started. But if you pop those lightnings around the tower, you will actually start dealing damage to the origin of water tower, as you can see. If you circle around, you are almost able to fully kill the tower with just one phase, but usually you will need 2, as it will be very hard to dodge around in sort of like very quickly after the attack starts. And another tip I want to stress this out about this attack is do not walk close to each other. Trust me, even if you think you can manage walking like right next to each other or one behind another, keep your distance away from other players. Those lightnings are delayed, so they will drop like a second after you have been in that spot. If 2 of you group up and one of you makes a wrong turn or something like that, or both of you are taking the tower, there's a very good chance that you will receive a chain of hits from that lightning and a lot of your units or even your summoner will die. So whenever that attack happens, one of the person or 2 of the people who are dodging the tornado should be continue running around. One person should be hitting the tower, and if you have a free person, he can start hitting the boss as well for some extra damage. So be careful, that is probably the phase where you will fail the most as far as the elemental rotations go. And yeah, after this attack, this pretty much covers all of the attacks from the win phase. So again, the phase will end once you do 20% damage to it. So for us, it will be down to 40%. And once the towers are gone. I believe in this case, the tower is very low. And as you can see, don't split up when that electric shock attack happens. It will be very painful if you don't manage to dodge it. So maybe I will be attacking the tower this time. Yeah, as you can see, once you walk around the tower, if the lightning hits the tower, it will receive a little bit of damage. And once it is destroyed and the boss drops 20% of HP, he will enter the next phase. And now after the boss drops to 40% HP, you will be entering the final phase and, well, not the final actually, the second final phase. It will be the minion stage, as I like to call it. So as you can see, 3 of these platforms will appear, and the monsters in those platforms I have already mentioned in the beginning. One of them will be the Fire Ifrit, one of them will be the Wind Sylph, and the third one will be the Water Undyne plus 2 Water High Elementals. So the Fire Ifrit and the Wind Sylph are by far the easiest, so players who do not have specific teams or so should be doing those. The Water Mermaid will require a different setup for it. The main problem with her is that she does apply that revival buff very often. Sometimes she can apply that revival buff like a second or two after reviving instantly, so you will need a certain counter to it. And a few ways to counter, I believe the light, what's it called, Orbia, has both a strip as well as a buff block. So she is awesome for there, and if you do have an Orbia in your team, I would recommend one of the Orbias to focus on the Water Mermaid minion, unless the person who isn't an Orbia has like a specific counter to it. I believe the one of the Kina abilities also has Strip. I haven't played Kina much, so I'm not sure there. I think it's the Wind one or something like that, right? So if you're a Kina player, you will know, and if you do have a Strip on Kina, consider also using her. For me, the best counter from my team was the Nadine Ha. She does have a buff block on her first charge skill, so she is also a decent option. However, you must have high accuracy on her, otherwise it will not be consistent enough. And yeah, you can search for various ways to counter it. First of all, remove beneficial effects. There are plenty of units that do it. Check what you have and choose accordingly. Another option is to, of course, use the block beneficial effect. Again, there are quite a few options for it. I prefer Nadine Ha. You may have a different unit or something. Don't bring a super weak unit, like don't bring no Nat 2s that you see or anything like that, right? If you do not have anything built, maybe let an Orbia or a Kina do it instead of you. And yeah, that will just be easier and not mess around with your team too much. Third option, this one will probably be the rarest, but you can also use unrevivable damage. This means that after killing a boss, or not a boss, a unit, it will not be able to revive no matter what. So there are a few units. Most likely the one you will have built is the Water Beth. However, she's a more PvP focused unit, so whether you have her built or not, it's up to you, really. I personally think that a strip will be the easiest way to counter, as it's sort of the most available out of those options. And yeah, as for the minion phase itself, once it starts, you will have a timer, and that timer will be exactly 1 minute. So you have 1 minute to kill all 3 of the minions in all 3 little islands. These are the portals to them, so once you stand next to them, you click F or just click the button, whichever platform you are playing on. It's very similar to like how the sunken ruins work and stuff like that. You will be teleported to the phase and you will have to deal with the minion. So again, the Fire Ifrit and the Wind Sylph are really easy regardless of what team you have. Of course, for me, I have a full water team, so the Fire Ifrit is sort of a no-brainer choice, and Nadine Ha is usually able to like 2-shot or 3-shot the Ifrit alone. Once you're done with the phase, you will actually reduce certain buffs from the boss. So as you can see, beating the Ifrit has removed the damage taken effect from it, and each minion that you defeat will provide a certain buff for it. Once you're done with your minion, you can actually go to another portal and help out your teammates deal with theirs. As you can see, Undyne is the most annoying. She does that revive. Unfortunately, my Narinha missed the block effect at first. She applied that second one. We dealt with this. There's like 15 seconds left, and I think the Sylph is dying as well. And this was pretty much the minion phase. Overall, it's really not that difficult as long as you have decent damage and ways to counter those specific minions, especially the water Undyne. You will have no issues at all. And now the big boss phase. So the last 40% will be the neutral type boss. He will have all three passives from all three what they're called elemental phases combined. So first of all, 30% reduce damage. What else? So yeah, it was 30% reduce damage, 80% crit resistance, 100% lifesteal. His attacks will apply electric shock, his attacks will strip, and what else is there? I think that's about all. So basically just all three passives from all three elementals are combined. And he will also share a lot of attacks with the previous elemental phases. Not all of them, but there will be like 2 from each elemental. So the attacks will not be new, it's just that they will be a little bit more deadly due to him having stuff like strips on some of those attacks, electric shocks, more damage, etc. etc. So just a few phases that I will showcase. So first of all, let's find, so the absorbed, again, the red bubble you do not hit, otherwise it will do damage to you. I think we didn't know how it works, so we might have hit it. No, we didn't, okay. So as you can see, that bubble, if you don't hit it, he will not use his sort of unleash attack. What other phases are there? Oh, so the circles, again, he will pop 3 circles, and this time remember that all of his attacks strip, so not only you will be receiving damage, but you will also be receiving a strip most likely, so make sure to not get hit by those. Yeah, as you can see, not only it stripped and applied frostbite, it also applied electric shock, because the wind one had electric shock on every single attack. So be careful of all the abilities in this. Again, those little circle tornadoes, not too scary, but remember that he does apply strip and electric shock, so that is a bit scary. And there's a new attack right here. If we back up a few seconds, you'll notice that periodically the boss will choose one of the enemies. So this time this May tired guy was chosen. He will get this target similar to how the fire phase worked. However, this time the attack is actually an insta-kill. It is not doing 85% fixed damage, it's doing 100% HP fixed damage, and it will happen, I think, a little bit faster. So whoever has the target should move away from the rest of the people, like in the general direction away. Doesn't have to be far away from the boss. And once the boss charges it, he will launch an attack, and you basically have to dodge it. So as you can see, it shoots an attack, and whoever is caught in that attack will be instantly dead. So there's also the half circle attack again. As you remember, that one did burn. However, since it's the final boss, it will also strip, it will also apply electric shock, it will life steal for the boss, so remember to do that. And one thing I forgot to mention about the boss is to deal with that drain phase, heal block will pretty much be required in this case. It depends what sort of units you have built. I saw that some of my teammates used a fire, what's it called, Harpu Colleen, so she is able to heal, attack buff, and one of her skills applies heal block. I like to use the light harp magician. Her third skill is sort of useless, but her second, like this skill, first charge ability, is really nice. It applies consistent heal block, like the cooldown of that skill is high or lower than the duration of the buff, so she's able to keep it permanently. And it also applies damage taken up, which increases our damage a lot, since we did not have a very consistent damage taken up in this apart from the wind Orbeus. And if you remember, since the boss does have critical resistance, using a Verde heal will be useful right here as well. You can see we have a Verde. So once the Verde's buff is applied, he will allow you to do more damage due to the critical hits not being resistant. Again, the blue bubble we already covered are similar to the red bubble, except this time you do have to be hitting it in order to disable. And let's just proceed with a few more attacks of what happens. Again, the target attack, this time it chose a different player, so simply dodge it. It's really not too difficult to dodge as long as you have a dash ready. And yeah, just like all previous 3 bosses, this boss also has that sort of dash through people attack. This time, this attack is extremely scary because, as you remember, it applies damage taken up, but now it also strips. It also applies electric shock. So if you can see, my team is about to get hit, and look at all of the buffs that are removed and all of the debuffs that are applied. They had movement speed, they had attack speed, and all I'm left with is level 1 to level 3 attack shock, or what is called electric shock, and a level 2 to level 3 brands, as well as pretty much no buffs left. So yeah, this one super scary. Get some buffs ready as soon as that happens, as otherwise there's a very good chance that a follow-up attack may kill you. And yeah, just finishing up the boss, doesn't look like too many different attacks are coming up. Another dash coming through, another absorb. This time I don't think we still knew how to counter it. So as you can see, everyone drops to 15% HP if you do not have a shield ready, because the boss provides electric shock as well as strip on all his attacks. There's a good chance your units may die to the electric shock, as it does a lot of damage over time. So get a heal ready, get a shield ready, whatever protects you. You can see that I didn't have a heal block on him, so check how much lifesteal he did with all of those weakened attack buffs. So he was at 1%, and yeah, he's at 0.8 and heals to 5%. So the lifesteal is pretty big if you do not have the heal block in your team. So I always recommend having it when possible. And yeah, just letting it tick. This time I received the little target attack. As you can see, it's really not difficult to dodge as long as you have one dash ready. You will be just fine, and the raid is pretty much done. So there were a lot of interruptions to the raid itself. So since we are done pretty much with the explanation, I will leave a full raid run at the end of this video, so like in a minute or so. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Hope it helps you learn a bit about the raid. If you do have any questions, do leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer you based on the experience that I've had so far. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. Now let's cue the rest of the raid.
I lost a friend, I felt like dying again and again. I went through hell instead of death, but I keep fighting with each living breath. I saw no way out from where I stood, felt like the fire had burned me through. Now you're gone, I'm alone, I guess it's time to get better. Through the pain, I will go alone. If I fall, break my bones, I will scream even louder, 'cause I'm not dying alone. I lost my best friend.